because our number 9 prospect, Dante Nori, who is the Phillies' first round pick in the 2024 draft, is almost the complete opposite in terms of a timeline. Dante Nori is still incredibly young. I want to say he's just now 20 years old, and a 5'10, 190 left-handed outfielder. Reese has very interesting bloodlines, though. I'm curious if you'd tell us a little bit more about Dante Nori.
Yeah, the son of current NBA assistant coach Mike Nori. He's more speed than anything else at this point. There's speed, contact, and I think with the speed comes a good defensive center fielder. I think that, being almost 20 when he was drafted, he was like 19.5. And like as at the time the draft rolled around, I think there were some questions on, is he just beating up on younger talent, being a high schooler and being almost over 19 is kind of has some red flags, but it hasn't stopped players from being drafted that highly in the past. Like Brett Beatty was drafted really highly, with the same similar concerns. And ultimately, once you enter pro ball, the age doesn't matter. So I think with him, it's just this is a double plus run. This is a double plus run guy with good defensive center fielder. I think that there's a low end outcome of being a nice fourth outfielder, bench sort of pinch runner, late inning defensive replacement guy. And if the offense sort of takes a step forward, which with his body, it's just kind of it's very physically filled out, but he only has like below average power. So where does the power come from? Is it like a tweak in the swing plane and everything like that? I think that's ultimately what it's going to be, because it's not like he's going to add any more strength or anything like that, because then you're going to have to you lose a little bit of fluidity from him as an athlete. I think one of the big things with him is just, can he alter his swing path a little bit? And that might unlock a lot more offensive upside. Maybe he becomes like a big league, like just an everyday center fielder.
I think that's probably the ceiling, right? I don't think
Mhm.
that we're going to get any kind of world beater, first team, all world player out of Dante Nori, and he's so interesting because the speed is the key thing with Nori, but at the same time he is built almost like. Do you remember the little what was the child that was just jacked to the gills? Several years ago on the internet. That's what Dante Nori reminds me of, because he is very light framed, but he is ridiculously muscular for such a small frame. I also have to point out that with Nori, it was a below average first taste of professional ball in what we could consider an average sample size for players drafted in 2024. I did see very, very impressive plate discipline, which is something I wasn't necessarily looking to see from Nori, but it is encouraging because even if the power doesn't develop, but he can get on base, I think the speed can play, especially considering he can get on base. Again, if we see this development with the plate discipline, Reese, and I'm curious, altogether, we see together, if I'm understanding you correctly, Dante Nori as a strong center fielder that's a double plus runner. The power is, I don't want to even say questionable, maybe doubtful. Is that fair?
I think the best way to describe it is to be determined, because ultimately, how do they
Hmm.
figure out the swing plane and everything like that? He is so young, like he's young for like a professional player. So
Yes.
there is a chance that they just figure out how he can start to backspin more batted balls, and maybe he's a lift and pull guy. And if he does that, like nowadays, big league center fielders have to hit 20 to 25 jacks, right? Like the offensive
Yeah.
bar for that position is so high. It's no longer a position that teams are willing to sacrifice defensively with the athletes that we get in baseball now. And Nori isn't a fantastic athlete, with good bloodlines. His dad is an NBA coach, so he knows what it's like to be around really good professional athletes. So he's got the bloodlines and everything like that going for him. I just think that with Nori, the power and how it develops will ultimately be the biggest thing, because I think that the ceiling and the floor, there's not a lot of space in between them. But I think that that's like a high floor sort of prospect, even for a prep guy.